Alright, so the purpose of this video today is to show you how to fill out this planning sheet for your reading and creating SAC draft. One of the reasons why we want you to fill out this planning sheet as best as you can right now is because we want you to be thoughtful about the choices that you're making when you're constructing your creative piece. Another reason is because when you actually get to write your written explanation, which I haven't explained in class, but I will in week 4, you're going to need to analyze the choices that you've made in actually constructing your piece of writing. Okay, that's a really important part of the SAC that is also assessed. So hopefully what this is going to do is give you a pretty solid basis in which to think about, well, which option are you going to choose, and how are you going to draw on Harwood's ideas and themes, as well as her writing and poetic techniques, and put that into your piece, because that's a huge part of the actual SAC. So I've already done or filled out some of it, just to give you an idea of what to put in here. On the left, we've got feature of original text, so this is all about what you can remember and what you understand from Gwen Harwood's poetry. You may need to go through some of the poems again just to be able to fill all of these things out. I've taught Harwood for the past 4 years, so a lot of this is off the top of my head. And on this side, the right side, are the features of your piece. Now, you may not be able to fill out this side just yet because you may not have thought about what you're going to write, how you're going to write it, and what you're going to include just yet, which is fine. What's more important at this point is that you fill out this left side so that there are things from Harwood's poetry that you can actually draw on and put into your own piece. Okay, I'm just going to go through a few of these just to give you an idea of what to put in there. So the first one is form and structure. So obviously the form of Harwood's texts are poems, which is verse. She's organized them into stanzas, and in some cases those stanzas are indented, like in the Violets. Now the narrative technique, usually her poems go in a chronological order, so things happen in a chronological way. However, in some poems she goes between the past and the present, like transitioning into a memory. So in that case, the narrative technique goes back and forth between different periods of time. Narrative viewpoint, which is first person, second person, or third person. I believe most poems, if not all of them, are in first person, and the reason for that is that Harwood wants to explore the speaker's point of view and perception of things. In your piece, you may choose to do the same thing, have it in first person. However, you may choose to have it in third person instead. Okay, it's completely up to you. You just need to make sure that you explain the reason why you have chosen something. So for example, if you are going to write instead of poems or verse in your actual creative piece, then you might write in prose, narrative, okay? But then you need to state your reason for doing so. If you're going to use, with your narrative technique, if you're going to transition between past and present, state your reason for doing so. If you're going to include dialogue, okay, so the reason why we want you to think about what your reasons are is so that you're a bit more thoughtful. Alright, most of these others are pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe style and tone. So what sort of language is used? So what you want to write there is perhaps, well, Harwood uses a lot of formal language. Okay, but she also uses typical speech when people speak, such as in the spelling prize. However, she also uses commands like end what you've begun. Okay. Also, in style and tone, you would want to think about the poetic techniques that are used. So you could think about including contrast, and just because it is a technique, indentation, put that here as well. Okay. Not going to put imagery in there because we have imagery here. And themes and motifs. Now, themes, we've kind of already talked about that in class. You may not be sure what a motif is. So a motif is a recurring image, object, idea, etc. Basically things that repeat throughout the text, in this case the poems. Okay, so for example, a recurring motif is the exploration of the speaker's memories, because that happens in more than one poem. Alright, so just for now, what I would suggest before you even think about what you're going to put in your draft or what you're going to do, try and fill out this left side of the table so that you can see what you might draw on from Harwood's poetry. The planning sheet can be found here in Files, and don't forget that your actual SAC draft is due on Thursday 22nd, which is next week.